Greetings students, welcome to my class. How are you my dear students? I hope you all are fit and fine. And as you all know, I hope the same thing for your family members too. Please take care of yourselves and your family members too. Stay at home and only go out when it is too much or when it is really important or it is an emergency. So my dear students, we have started the third chapter, first part. His two stories about flying, and the first part we started his first flight. I gave you the brief introduction of the chapter and we started the detailed explanation of the chapter in the previous class now, and we have read up to here, up to this line. Then he flapped, he could not, okay, we have read up to he was soaring gradually downwards and outwards when he. So we have read up to here. So up to here what had happened, then he was very hungry, and when he saw the food, when he saw the piece of fish in the mother's beak, so he was maddened by that food and he dived when his mother was just in front, and so he dived to catch, dived towards that piece of fish in her mother's beak, and he started falling down. His heart stopped for a moment. He thought that he's going to die and he was going upward and downwards, but and the monstrous terror struck him and his heart stood still, but just for a moment. And next moment he saw that his wings were spread outwards and the wind was crossing through his body, his whole body's chest, his stomach, and through his wings, and the towing point of his wings, he started flapping, and he saw himself, he was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. He saw himself flying. So now we will move further. I hope you all have your books with you. Okay, he was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. He was no longer afraid. अब वो डरा हुआ नहीं था. He just felt a bit dizzy. Dizzy meaning is given an uncomfortable feeling of spinning around and losing one's balance. So वो थोड़ा dizzy feel कर रहा था, that he was losing his balance, but he was no longer afraid. डरा हुआ नहीं था, थोड़ा सा घबराया हल्का सा कि वो uncomfortable feeling of spinning around and losing one's balance. चक्कर से ज़रूर आ रहे थे उसको, लेकिन he was not afraid. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. Because he was soaring gradually downwards, भी नीचे ऊपर नीचे हो रहा था, तो he was not able to maintain his balance. But then he flapped his wings. फड़फड़ाए. Flapped means when any bird move his wings, उसको फड़फड़ाना बोलते हैं. Once उसने एक बार फड़फड़ाए and he soared upwards. फिर वो ऊपर की तरफ उड़ने लगा. Soaring, I have told you to fly high in air. So वो ऊपर की तरफ उड़ने लगा. Ga 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 ga, cow ga call ah. His mother swooped past him to fly or move suddenly. So his mother swooped past him. Swooped meaning is to pass or fly और मूव सडनली. उसके पास से निकली बहुत तेज़ी से, और ये सब बोलते हो गा 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 गा. मैं तो शी वॉज वेरी हैप्पी सेइंग दैट यंग सीगल इज़ फ्लाइंग. सो शी सूट पास्ट हिम. हर विंग्स मेकिंग अ लाउड नॉइस. और उसकी जो विंग्स थे बहुत लाउड नॉइस करते हुए उसके पास से वो निकली. ही आंसर्ड हर विद अनदर स्क्रीम. चिल्लाते हुए निकली, खुशी थी तो चिल्लाते हुए बहुत तेज़ी से आवाज़ करते हुए उसके पंख भी उसके बाजू से वो पास हुई. एंड ही रिप्लाइड इन द लाउडर स्क्रीम, अनदर लाउड स्क्रीम. वो भी जिसने भी चिल्ला कर उसका जवाब दिया. देन हिज फादर फ्लू ओवर हिम स्क्रीमिंग, एंड देन हिज फादर फ्लू ओवर हिम. उसके फादर उसके ऊपर से उड़े चिल्लाते हुए. He saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him. Curvating meaning is given, leaping like a horse. and banking, flying with one wing higher than the other, and soaring and diving. What did he saw? First, his mother stood past him screaming. He replied with another scream. He saw, then his father flew over him screaming, and then he saw his two brothers and sister flying around him. उसके आसपास उड़ रहे थे घोड़े, leaping like a horse, घोड़े करते हुए वैसे उड़ रहे थे, एंड बैंकिंग एंड सोरिंग एंड डाइविंग, हवा में ऊपर जा रहे थे, नीचे आ रहे थे, डाइव मार रहे थे, उसके चारों तरफ वो ये कर रहे थे, वो खुशी के मारे. दे वर हैप्पी, ऑल वर हैप्पी. देन यंग सीगल इज़ नाउ फ्लाइंग, सो दे वर डूइंग ऑल दीज थिंग्स. His brothers and sister flying around him, leaping like a horse, जैसे घोड़ा दौड़ता है, and banking, flying with one wing higher and one wing lower like this, in this shape like this, and they were going soaring high and then diving also. So they were happy. Then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly. फिर वो एक पूरी तरह से he had completely forget that he is the same young seagull who was afraid to fly, who was not able to fly, जो नहीं उड़ सकता था, वो इस बात को भूल चुका था. And commended himself to dive and soar and curve, shrieking shrilly. And he praised himself, अपने आप की उसने तारीफ करी. To dive and soar, मतलब नीचे जाना, डाइव मार तो फिर ऊपर उड़ना हवा में, हाई एंड कर्व लेना, एंड shrieking shrilly, बहुत ज़ोर ज़ोर से चिल्लाना. He was near the sea now. He was near the sea. अब वो सी के पास, समुद्र के पास पहुंच चुका था. Flying straight over it, और उसके flying straight over it, इसके बिल्कुल ऊपर उड़ रहा था सीधा. Facing straight out over the ocean, and ocean को सीधा face कर रहा था वो. He saw a vast green sea beneath him. And what did he see beneath him? He saw a vast green sea, बहुत ही ओपन, फैला हुआ, चौड़ा, विशाल, हरा सी, उसको हरा समुद्र अपने नीचे दिखा. With little ridges moving over it, and he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly. So he saw a vast green sea beneath him with little ridges. Ridges here means waves. उसके ऊपर उसको लहरें दिखी, छोटी छोटी लहरें भी दिखी, moving over it, and he turned his beak sideways, और अपने मुंह जो चोंच थी उसने sideways उसने करी, and cawed means कौवे की आवाज़ निकाली, amusedly, crow sound, बहुत हैप्पी होते हुए, बहुत खुशी में, क्रा. He started doing this. His parents, because he was very happy, so happy, his parents and his brothers and sister had landed on this green flooring ahead of him. So उसके भाई बहन और माता पिता वहाँ पे लैंड कर चुके थे उस फ्लोर पे. Which floor? Green floor here means the green surface which was looking green, the sea surface. Sea का जो पानी की सब सतह थे ऊपर की, उस पर लैंड कर लिए थे उन्होंने. They were beckoning to him to make a loud noise, calling shrilly, उसको बहुत तेज़ी से बुला रहे थे कि आओ और यहाँ पर आओ. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. So what did he do? It was his first flight. His parents knew how to land on the surface of the sea, and obviously water was there. So he ड्रॉप्ड हिज लेग्स टू स्टैंड, उसने अपने जो लेग्स थे वो ड्रॉप किए टू खड़े होने के लिए पानी की सतह पर, विच इज़ नॉट पॉसिबल. हिज लेग्स सैंक इन टू इट, जो पानी में डूब गए. ही स्क्रीम्ड विद फ्राइड, और भय के मारे, डर के मारे. फ्राइड मीन्स टू फियर, वो चिल्लाया. एंड अटेम्प्टेड टू राइज अगेन फ्लैपिंग हिज विंग्स, और उसने क्या अटेम्प्ट किया? बाय फ्लैपिंग हिज विंग्स ही वांटेड टू राइज अगेन. बट ही वॉज टायर्ड एंड वीक विद हंगर, वो थक गया था, थका हुआ था और कमज़ोर हो चुका था हंगर से, भूख से. एंड ही कुड नॉट राइज, और वो फिर वो उड़ नहीं सका, उठ नहीं सका. एग्जॉस्टेड विद द स्ट्रेंज, by the strange exercise. It was first time for him, so he was already hungry for the last 24 hours, so he was tired and weak and exhausted. जब आप बहुत ज़्यादा थक चुके होते हो. His feet sank into the green sea, तो जो उसके पैर थे वो डूब गए हरे समुद्र में. And then his belly touched it, फिर उसका जो पेट था, belly, that touched the green sea. एंड ही सैंक नो फर्दर, और उसके बाद वो उससे ज़्यादा, नो फर्दर मीन्स उतना ही बैली, हिज फीट सैंक इन टू द ग्रीन सी, हिज बैली टच्ड इट एंड देन ही सैंक नो फर्दर, उसके बाद वो और नहीं डूबा. ही वॉज फ्लोटिंग ऑन इट, फ्लोटिंग मीन्स उसके ऊपर वो तैर रहा था, स्विमिंग ऑन इट. इट इज़ नेचुरल फॉर अ बर्ड, दे डोंट सिंक, दे जस्ट फ्लोट इट, तैरते हैं. एंड अराउंड हिम हिज फैमिली वॉज स्क्रीमिंग, praising him, and their beaks were offering him scraps of talk fish. He had made his first flight, and when he was floating on the green sea, so his family was around him, screaming, praising him, उसकी तारीफ़ कर रहे थे, चिल्ला रहे थे खुशी के मारे. and their beaks were offering him scraps of dog fish, और dog fish के टुकड़े भी उसको वो दे रहे थे. He had made his first flight, और इस तरह से उसने अपनी फर्स्ट फ्लाइट ले ली थी, उड़ ली थी, उड़ान, पहली उड़ान उसने भर ली थी. So this chapter is completed, my dear students. Now we will do the question answer, discussion of question answer in this class only. So there are thinking about the text questions. First question, why was the young seagull afraid to fly? Do you think all young birds are afraid to make their first flight, or are some birds more timid than others? Do you think a human baby also finds it a challenge to take its first steps? The first part we will see, why was the young seagull afraid to fly? Now we have read the chapter, so I hope that you can answer this question. I will just tell you that he was afraid to fly because he didn't have self-confidence on him. He was definite that his wings would not support him and he would fall into the deep sea and he would sink, डूब जाएगा. That's why he was afraid to fly, though his parents tried everything but they were not successful, and he was afraid, he was definite about that wings will not support, he will fall down from the ledge and he would sink in the green sea, deep vast sea. Do you think all young birds are afraid to make their first flight, or are some birds more timid than others? Well, every young bird, they do have some kind of fear when they try to make their first attempt to fly, to their first fly. So they have कुछ ना कुछ डर तो होता ही होगा, but there are, every human being as not the same, as every human being is different, 5 fingers are different, so same applies with the birds or the young birds. Some are very bold, brave, they don't fear of anything, they take the bold step, they take the risk. And as we have seen in the chapter, that young birds, 2 brothers and sister whose wings were short, their wings were shorter than him, but they took that plunge, Rujamp Lee, and they were flying before him, but he was lack in self-confidence, that's why he was not able to fly. So everyone is different, and some are timid, some take more time, some are very quick to do that, and some take more time, as the young seagull took more time than his brothers and sister. Now, do you think a human baby also finds it a challenge to take its first step? Yes, human babies are also like the young sea birds. Some kids, when they are born, they learn to walk quickly in a shorter period of time. Some start walking in 8th or 9th month, some take 1.5 years also, so it depends. Yes, it is a challenge for them. Some are very afraid of taking their first step, and some are very brave and bold. So now the second question, the sight of the food maddened him. What does this suggest? What compelled the young seagull to finally fly? The sight of the food maddened him. What does this suggest? Well, you all know that hunger is the drive force that can make us do anything without thinking about the consequences or the results of that thing which we are going to do. As the same thing happened in the chapter, that young seagull who was hungry for the last 24 hours, he did not have anything, his parents did not give him any food, and when he saw भूख से पागल हो गया था वो. And when he saw the piece of fish in his mother's beak, and his mother was just opposite to him, holding the piece of fish in her beak, and he thought he could get, and he was maddened by the sight of food. He dived towards that piece of fish which was in her mother's beak, and he dived and he started falling downwards and upwards. His heart also stood still. What does this suggest? What compelled the young seagull to finally fly? The sight of the food maddened him, and in that madness, due to the hunger, he jumped and he fell down, and that made him to take his first flight. They were beckoning to him, calling shrilly. बहुत उसको चिल्ला रहे थे, उसके ऊपर डांट रहे थे, कर्कश आवाज़ में उसको डांट रहे थे. Why did the seagull's father and mother threaten him and cajole him to fly? If it comes in 2 marks question, you will simply write because the young seagull was afraid of flying. He didn't have self-confidence on him. His parents tried everything so that he can make his first flight, but he was not able to gather the courage to jump and make a dive and to fly. So they wanted him to fly. Every parents, they want their kids to learn the art of survival, and the birds are meant to fly, and it is very important for the young seagull to learn the art of fly, and it is very important for them for their survival. If they will not learn that, they can't survive. पक्षियों के लिए उड़ना बहुत ज़रूरी है. अगर वो नहीं उड़ेंगे तो ज़िंदा नहीं रह सकते हैं, सर्वाइव नहीं कर सकते हैं. दैट्स वाई पेरेंट्स वर आफ्टर हिम. दे ट्राइड. उसको प्यार से समझाया, उसको खाना दे के समझाया, उसको डांटा, सब कुछ किया ताकि उसको दे थ्रेटेंड हिम ऑल्सो दैट ही वुड starve and he would die from hunger, because they wanted him to fly. That's why. Have you ever had a similar experience where your parents encouraged you to do something that you were too scared to try? Discuss this in pair. So we have to discuss this. So this you will not do in your fair notebook. In the case of a bird flying, it seems a natural act and a foregone conclusion that it should succeed. In the examples you have given in answer to the previous question, was your success guaranteed, or was it important for you to try regardless of a possibility of future? These two, fourth and fifth question, are the discussion question. We will discuss it later whenever we will. This is a discussion question, we can discuss it later. So first 3 questions you will do in your fair notebook. Some extra questions can be formed from the chapter, okay, that we will discuss it later when we will do the revision for pre-midterm exam. Then we can do the some extra question answers revision I can do in that class. So my dear students, this chapter first part is completed. In the next video we will start with the second part of the third chapter, the black aeroplane. Okay, so thank you.